in 1 hour. Click the link.
That up.
Let me a question to the few attendees who are already here. Did you guys actually get the email notification that this was starting in an hour? An hour ago? I never got that email, and I'm like, shoot, is there some sort of new stupid email filter I have, or did something screw up on our go-to meeting?
I don't know. I didn't get. I don't. Did I get something? I don't remember. I shut down my email, so I don't get to see it now. Hey, there's Brian. So I'm trying something a little bit new today. I'm going with the headset, but I'm wrapping it around my neck and going with the microphone on it. So hopefully it'll be better sound than off my laptop, but I'm going with the speakers on my laptop, so I'm not covering up my ears. And my laptop webcam is the only webcam I have right now because my docking station is broken. So you're going to get to look at the side of my face during the whole entire presentation.
Well, can you hear us? I mean, it sounds like I can hear you great.
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Fantastic. And no echo, so bonus.
That's good.
Oh, and chat's disabled again. Thank you, Charlie. Chat. I don't know how that got changed either. I swear to God, Zoom did some stupid update and security features, and now chat's disabled by default.
That's ridiculous.
Oh, panelists can only chat with panelists. We can't send it to everyone according to the settings.
Why? That's silly. Oh, we got a good turnout today. Awesome. Yeah. There's more than just the three of us, so cool. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. I'll try to address my talking to my webcam on my laptop. This is going to be weird. So welcome, everybody. My name is Brian. This is Brian, and this is Brian. This is Civil Chat. If you've not been here before, welcome. This is your chance to ask questions on anything civil engineering related in the Autodesk world. If I don't know the answer, I don't know. I'll try to figure it out, but no guarantees, but we'll do the best that we can. This is driven by y'all. So you have to ask the questions and we will answer them. If you don't ask questions, there's nothing for us to answer, and we'll just kind of chit chat back and forth among ourselves. So make sure you ask lots of questions. Oh, and if you want to share this with other folks, please do so. We don't get paid for this. It's something we like to do. So share it among your friends, your family, your coworkers, especially your family. Parents are great. All right.
On the bright side, our marketing budget has not gotten, depleted at all.
This is true.
We have maintained the same marketing budget the entire time we've ran Civil Chat.
Well, I think from last year, we actually doubled our marketing budget.
Are you sure it wasn't an infinite amount? Because our marketing budget is word of mouth. That's what we're going for here.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. Two times zero is still zero, right?
Exactly. All right, so I'm going to start off by sharing doing a little tips and tricks type of thing. And this gives you an opportunity to post questions up so that we have something to answer. So here, this is kind of a combination AutoCAD and Civil 3D tip here. So as I'm working in this drawing here, as I hold my mouse and it just sits still, I get this beautiful, fantastic pop-up right there in the middle of my drawing that typically falls right on top of whatever this thing is that I'm trying to look at. So this is known as a rollover tooltip. I despise rollover tooltips. I really never use them. I don't know if anybody else tends to use them, but they just take up a lot of space and they just show up on top of my drawing and it's annoying. So that's one of the things that'll pop up on top of your drawing. Another thing that'll pop up on top of your drawing is the Civil 3D tooltips. All right, why didn't you work? Come on, let's go. So if you're not on top of an object, you'll get the Civil 3D tooltip. So this will give you things like the elevations of your surfaces, the station offset of alignments, or station elevations and profiles, things like that. I find this to be helpful sometimes, but not always. Another thing that will pop up is if you select something. you'll get your quick properties. I have a love-hate relationship with the quick properties. I love it and hate them at the same time. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to change some of these settings to hopefully make these a little bit more beneficial. And then the last thing that tends to pop up is your dynamic input. So if I start, typing and I type L for line, you can see this thing pops up here right in the middle of my screen. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some things that you can change to make these a little bit more useful and less annoying. The first one is those rollover tooltips, this garbage here, right? I hate this. I hate it with a passion. I never, ever want to see these things, right? They just always pop up and they're just always in the way. So if you go into your options, so I just type OP for options, and of course it always shows up on my other screen, which is underneath all the Zoom stuff because I only have one screen because my docking station is dead, right? So if you go into your options, go to the display tab in your options, you can turn off the rollover tooltips. All right, so I just simply turn those off. I select OK. And now as I mouse over something, I don't get that AutoCAD rollover tooltip. I still get the Civil 3D stuff, which I think is good in some situations, but I don't have to deal with that big white box right in the middle of my screen constantly, right? So that's the AutoCAD rollover tooltips. So let's talk about the Civil 3D tooltips now. So how can you control the display of these? The nice thing about these is you can control them at several different levels. One, you can just turn them off completely. Two, you can turn them off for all things of a certain type, or three, you can turn them off for certain objects, right? So right now I've got two surfaces in here. I've got that corridor surface and I've got the existing ground surface. I'm not interested in any of the elevations for the existing ground. So I want to turn just those tooltips off. And the way you do this is you go into the properties of that object. So I select the object, I go into your surface properties or alignment properties or whatever properties it was. On the information tab down here at the bottom, you can simply uncheck show tooltips. All right, and when I uncheck that, I now only get tooltips for the one surface and not the other surface. All right, so you can do it individually for individual objects. You can also do it for all surfaces or all alignments, right? And the way we do this is through the settings tab, right click on the feature. So in this case, I'm going to do this for surfaces. So I'm going to right click on surface and edit the feature settings. Again, this is under the settings tab here. I'll go ahead and pull this over. And then I believe it's under general, if I remember correctly, show tooltips. Right? So I can go into my surface settings and say, no, I don't want to see the tooltips. Now, this is specific for this drawing. This is not a user setting like the rollover tooltips are in CAD, right? This is specific to this drawing, right? So if I choose OK now, you'll notice I don't get any tooltips. I'm not getting any tooltips at all. Let's try that again. Come on, I should at least be getting the alignments. Why am I not getting my alignments? Interesting.
You had it for a split second there.
Huh. I should still be, there it goes. I don't know why it was taking so long, but yeah, as you can see, I don't get any of the surfaces now, but I do still get the alignments. And finally, you can turn it off for the entire drawing by right-clicking on the drawing name, edit drawing settings. And then on the ambient settings tab, you can expand out general and show tooltips. And this will turn it off for everything in your drawing, right? You will never see another tooltip in Civil 3D from Civil 3D again, right? So I'm not going to see any surfaces, alignments, profiles, nothing.
Is that for Civil 3D or just for this drawing?
That's just for this drawing. All right, so this is the drawing settings, right? So it's specific to this drawing, and it's not specific to the user. It's specific to the drawing. So nobody will see them in this drawing. All right. So that's something to be aware of. You're going to go in and change those things. All right. So that's the rollover tooltips. That's the Civil 3D tooltips. Let's talk about the quick properties now. So if I select something, I get this big thing that pops up. Now, when quick properties first came out, I was like, oh, this thing is evil. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that would think the same thing. I'm guessing, Brian, you're not a big fan of the quick properties, right?
I'm
Awesome.
assuming you're talking the other brand.
Despise, loathe, and hate are three of the words that come up with the quick properties. That and running O snaps, but I'll just leave myself out of this.
Right. And so I'm not, I hate the way they work this way, but I think the quick properties are very beneficial. The thing I hate about them is when I pick on them, they always pop up right there in the middle of the screen. Now I can move them out of the way. Let me go ahead and put them over there. Great. But when I pick something again, it's back in the middle of my screen. However, we can change that behavior. So just below the little X on your quick properties, you can go under the options for your quick properties. And in your options, you can go to location mode and make it static. So now when I move this up here to the top left of my drawing area, the next time I pick something, it's still up there at the top left of my drawing area. So no matter what I pick, it's going to be up there in the top left, and I can change those properties. Another nice thing about the quick properties is you can control what properties are being displayed in the quick properties. So if I just draw, say, for example, a line here, and I select it, and in my quick properties, I can hit the options again, and I can customize it. And so for all these different things, I bet it's going to show up on my, oh, it showed up here. Cool. So for my line, here are all the properties I can display for the line. Maybe I'm really interested in the starting and ending elevations for my lines. So I can toggle on the start Z and the end Z values. Apparently I can't do that because that's the enterprise CUI that I was trying to edit.
And I, as a person who imports in spaghetti drawings from civil engineers all of the time, I wish quick properties in the Z elevation would be there for every single one of the files you guys put out.
Yeah.
Then maybe I wouldn't get such spaghetti drawings.
Yeah. So apparently it's not going to work because this is under my partial. Do I have it under here as well? So if I go into my custom, see, I should have tested that before. Okay. So if you're not using an enterprise CUI, you should be able to edit that and change what properties you see up there. Right. But at least it's out of the way now. So got that going for us, which is cool. All right. And finally, the dynamic input. Right. When the dynamic input first came out, I wasn't a big fan of it. In fact, I gave it a good try. Right. I left it on for at least 5 minutes before I started Googling on how to turn this stupid thing off. Right. So the problem I had is if I had my cursor up here in the top right of my drawing, and as I'm moving my mouse towards the bottom left, because that's where I need to go draw something, right? As I'm moving the cursor, as I type, my cursor froze and would freeze right there. And now I'm thinking, okay, did I type this correctly or not? And this was before the autocomplete thing, right? And so I'd have to go search my screen for where my cursor was when I stopped typing, right? And if you're in a busy drawing, it could be difficult to find. So what we can do is if you go into your drafting settings, so DS for drafting settings, right? We have the dynamic input tab. And one thing I always like to do is I like to change it so that the input is down at the command line, right? So show command prompting and command input near the crosshair. So I'm going to uncheck that, select OK. And now as I move my mouse and I type L, it's showing up down there at the command line the way God intended it to be, right? So now I can type line down there and it's showing up at the command line. I'm not getting the prompts near my cursor. So that was one of the things I always despised about the dynamic input, but being able to make that change, I found I really do like the dynamic input.
I didn't intend for that to happen.
What's that?
You said God intended. I didn't intend for it.
You didn't intend for it. Yeah. So if you're not using your dynamic input, I would recommend trying it again with that setting changed, because that's the primary reason I see most people try to turn it off. But I mean, be able to select this and just type in, tabbing over to the total distance and changing that to 1,000 and just seeing your line change is really great. Being able to mouse over the grip of a line and seeing all that information, I really enjoy that. Right. Another thing I just thought of this, I wasn't planning on talking about it, is the multifunction grips. Right. So let me draw a polyline here because that'll show up a little bit better. right? So if I mouse over this, I get the stretch vertex, add vertex, remove vertex, right? And so you can come down here and choose these different options. But did you know that if you select the grip, right? And so that will take you into the first of your multifunction grip options. And if you hit the control key, it'll cycle you through those options. So now I'm adding a vertex. I hit control again. I'm now removing the vertex. I hit control again. It takes me back to the beginning where I'm stretching. Right. Same thing if I go over the arc. Right. If I grab it, or the line, I grab it, I'm stretching it. I hit control. I'm adding a vertex. I hit control again. I'm converting it into an arc. I hit control again, and I'm back to stretching the line. Right. So if you are really familiar with the way multifunction grips work, you can actually go in and turn off the display of the multifunction grips on your lines. Because if you have like a drawing full of polylines that have contours on it, right? And you have, what happens all the time is you go in and you grab an object and your mouse ends up on top of it and you go, hey, I want to erase it. Oops, I moved my mouse, right? Your mouse ends up on top of it and you go E for erase and you hit enter. Well, it says, hey, there is no multifunction grip option that starts with E. And so it doesn't erase it. Even though I didn't select the group because my mouse was over it, it popped that up. And that is, where is that setting? I can't, is it in your options? Or is it in the drafting settings? I think it's in the options. Do you remember where this one is, Brian?
No, actually, I have not utilized that. I've been plagued with that for an eternity, in the fact that I constantly do that to erase, and it's actually hovering over.
User preferences.
If any place I would think would be under selection, perhaps, but that's just me. To be able to denote what it is selected.
Under grips, show dynamic grip menu.
There it is.
I bet that's it. So now when I mouse over it, I don't get the grip, but if I select it and do my control, I still get the options for the dynamic, or the multifunction grips.
I did not know you could do the control. That is fantastic.
Yeah.
I did know that you could do the tab, so that way you could tabulate through if you're stretching, rotating, scaling, or moving.
Right. So the space.
Yeah, excuse me. Yep.
Yeah, that's cool too.
Learn something every day.
Yeah. And if you're not careful.
Yeah.
So that's kind of all the introductory stuff I had. So that took up about 15 minutes or so. Do we have any questions?
Well, we can have, I can say Tom's comment, but that'll probably end up being, a nice big argument with everybody how they hate that feature. So we'll go to Charlie's question first. Charlie's question was, is there a better way than using tooltips to check the elevation on surfaces, stations, etc., alignments, profiles, all that fun stuff?
So there's a couple of ways. One is the tooltips, right? So let me, that was too far back. I just undid everything. I shouldn't have done that. Let me bring my surfaces back in. Let's see. It was the corridor surface and the existing ground. Come on. And I'll grab an alignment. We'll do that same one. All right. So I didn't deal with styles and whatnot. So one is the tooltips. So if I just hold my mouse, it shows me, the station elevation or the station offset for an alignment. It would do station elevation in a profile view, elevations of surface. That's the way I would do it. Especially if you turn off those rollover tooltips. And that way you don't have to, it doesn't suppress this. Another thing you could do is if you go to the Analyze tab, over here towards the right, we have the Inquiry tool. All right, this will bring up a nice little palette for you. Of course, it's up on my other screen, just like everything else. I'm sure I've told this tip before. If you're trying to get a palette to go on top of another palette, if you hold the control key, it prevents it from docking temporarily. Right? Or if you never want it to go on it, you can go into the properties and uncheck allow docking, and then it just won't. So not holding the control key now. Anyways, so we got all sorts of different types of things. So if you're looking for, hey, the station offset of an alignment, you can go to alignment, station offset. Let me make this a little bit bigger. All right, alignment, station, and offset at point. It's going to ask for the point. So I can just click this little button here, pick a point, and it tells me all that information. All right, you can do the same thing for a surface. If I go to surface elevation and grade at point, again, I select the surface. All right, so I'll do it for the existing ground. And then I pick the point and it tells me what the elevation is there. And it gives you all sorts of great information as well. All right, so those are some other tools that you have. The third method that I have is simply throwing a label in. All right. So yeah, Charlie, getting the exact station, this would be the tool for doing that.
He wants to be able to just pick a point on the alignment and get the exact station.
Yeah, so you would come in here to the alignment, station, offset at point, and then I'm gonna use the nearest snap. All right. Oh, sorry. Let's do that. Nearest snap, and it gives me the exact station for it.
But nothing in a sort of tooltip kind of scenario. You have to go into your settings there.
No, unless you were to do something like draw a circle at that location or something that you could then get a grip to. It doesn't even look like it because it's over a grip. It's not giving me the Civil 3D tooltips.
This is what you gave him. He loves. So that's one step. You know, there's things like that always drive me crazy. It's like you're giving me all this pointless information on a pop-up screen, but the stuff I truly want, I can't get on a pop-up screen.
Right.
You know, I'm buying time here because Charlie is the only one partaking in today's session of Civil Chat here.
Yeah, come on, people. We need some questions.
But, I got a question. Or should I type it in? I mean, if I let the bantering begin, right? You guys may have covered this, but you know where it's like got drawing one, and if I hover over the tab up the top, it shows me a preview of my drawing one. And how many times have you guys gotten it pulled? You got maybe 3 or 4 drawings open, even though you shouldn't. I try to tell people not to have 4 or 5 drawings open, but it shows me like multiple layouts and all those drawings, and it's a pain in the butt because then all of a sudden it'll shift between, and it's got to regen, and then I got to wait there 5 minutes, and the person's right behind me, and the client wants it now. And is there a way to shut that off? And I'm leading the question because I know there's a way to shut it off, but I figured there's got to be help a brother out.
Right. So
I know there's a way to shut it off because I've seen Brian Haley talk about this because it drives him crazy too.
Yeah. So so you're talking about if I mouse over the drawing name and then I get the file tab previews down here, and then if I mouse over it, it's actually changes the display in my drawing.
Yeah, and if I've got like 4 or 5 of them, oh my gosh, it takes a regen
time and you don't
get this stuff.
You don't want to go to the tab. I just want to go to the drawing. Yeah. So there's a couple of different things you can do. One, you can just turn them off altogether.
Okay.
Or 2, you can turn off the option for the switching.
Well, can you show me both by chance?
I can show you one. I can't remember the other one off the top of my head. Right. So this little switching thing. Right. So I actually kind of like seeing the tabs. Right. So when I hover over it, I see the tabs, but I just don't want the drawing to change every time I mouse over one. So that is the thumb. Let's see if I can remember what it is. Thumb hover, file tab, thumb hover.
Oh, that's a intuitive command. Yes, it is.
Right. So you just type thumb hover, the autocomplete should kick in, and you set that to 0. Now, when I mouse over that, I still get the preview, but it doesn't do that automatically switching for me. All right. So this is the way I would have my system set up in my ideal world. Right. So I like it this way. And then if I need to, I can always click on it and it will take me to that tab of that drawing. Right. The other option is to turn off the display of that altogether. And I don't remember what the command is off the top of my head, but I have a feeling somebody here does.
I think it starts with file tab preview.
Is that what it is?
Yep. And Nathan agrees with
Yep.
that.
File tab preview. It doesn't just start with it. That is the entire thing. Right. So if you set that to 0,
yep.
Right, then you don't get the preview at all.
No, but you get the pull downs, which is kind of nice because then, yeah, and it doesn't take up my graphics card issue.
I wonder if the file.
Thomas, it just sounds to me like you need a better graphics card. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
I do the file tab thumb hover. Yeah. If that is on,
I've got a 3090. I got a 3090 bro with 24 gigs. The company went all out, and it that still file causes problems.
That thumb hover one, I despise. Thumb hover.
Thumb hover. Yeah, file tab thumb hover over my drawing.
Set that
cover.
to 0. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, there was another one I was just shown yesterday. And ever since 2021, the insert. When I type in insert, I get that wonderful little.
Isn't that just a lovely? Of course, it popped up on my other screen.
Yeah, it's just a lovely.
Underneath all my Zoom panels. Where's my mouse? Come on. There you go.
And in 2021, I don't know about you guys, but I couldn't figure out how to even get to the browser portion. I despised it. I got to the point where I had a file explorer open all the time, and I would go manually search, drag.
Oh, you mean this very obvious button right here that says browse for a drawing?
Yeah, that's not there in 2021. That's not.
Thumb hover thing doesn't give you a whole. It says displays a file navigation dialog box where you can what?
Yeah. So a friend showed me, it's called Classic Insert. I was like, they had to put the classic in there, didn't they? And it gives me the old school.
Lot of things.
Well, they debated calling it the old guy command, but they figured that wasn't going to go over well.
The old guy command. And yes, DD insert does work great as well. Thank you, Raphael.
Yep.
So
what you can do if you're so inclined, and I did this on my system prior to upgrading to 2023, and I haven't updated it yet, is you can go into your alias edit. So I always like to type things, alias edit. It's one of your Express tools. So if you go to Express tools, command aliases, it does the same thing as typing alias edit.
Yeah.
You can add an alias.
Yep.
Right, so I click on add. Of course, again, it pops up on my other screen for I, and have that be your DD insert or your classic.
Insert. Yeah, the only problem is
insert.
Those of us that are CAD managers, you're looking at multiple people trying to get to this thing,
right? Yeah, and this is for the individual people, right?
Yeah.
Right?
No, that's
so
great.
you can change it.
Yeah, but then the problem is you change that on your machine, you get support from your CAD manager, it comes over, and they're like, "What the heck is this dialogue?"
Well, you can always just type insert.
I'm not looking for the old guy freaking command.
You can always type insert, but then if I type I get
you get the old
on the other screen. All right.
And I did see a pop-up about the extend and trim. Yes, I always change mine back to classic mode too. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was one thing that drove me crazy, and I always preach this in the Revit world when I'm doing trainings: don't change any of the out of the box. Because I'd go to people's machines and try to type L for line, and they're like, "Oh no, I changed that to be A." What?
Yeah.
Oh, I changed that to be XYZ. What? Why? It's the trim command. Why is it XYZ? Oh, because it just it flowed better on my fingers. What?
Yeah. Now, Mr. Mackey, I'm sure you're going to kill me, but I have changed my Revit to look like AutoCAD, meaning I have changed the background to black. I have Brought in all the basic M commands, insert commands, and rewrote. But yeah, don't hate me.
No, the biggest reason I tell people, and I've had in my years of Revit, is when you make it look like AutoCAD, you think like AutoCAD. Therefore you fail. If you're fortunate, you can differentiate between the two. But in general, I have found, and that's literally why the Charles River software, when they did it, they said, "Hey, we're going to make this black and white, so it's not AutoCAD," and your brain makes that switch.
No,
Makes
no,
sense.
I agree with 100%. I did fall upon an individual that had it turn black, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
don't do that.
And see, and Tom agrees with me. He's like, yeah, changing the out of the box aliases, don't do that.
Yep.
Add additional ones, whatever you want. But
Yep.
It's the same thing for me in the Revit world. I get people do the same thing all the time. I go to somebody's machine and it's like, oh, DI is not dimension anymore. No, I made that D or whatever. It's just like, oh my God. And there is no typing of a command in Revit. And there's a lot of people in Revit who don't know where the buttons are. So they literally could not tell you, if they don't have their own personal key shortcuts, how the hell to get to that command.
Yeah, wow.
And you see, I disagree. I think people on your, if it's your system, if it's not a shared system and it's your system, change your aliases to whatever makes you the most efficient. Don't keep them, don't stay inefficient because somebody else might one day, perhaps, maybe come on your system.
Yeah, people started changing. When I was in the CAD world, people had changed too dang much. I'd be like, yeah, I can't help you, and I'd walk away.
See, I can always help people because I know how to get to the original command, right? So for example, if somebody had, for example, the one I always like to use is blip mode, right? This is a great prank to play on somebody. If you type blip mode,
oh no.
Right, let me actually turn my set my dynamic input back on. So I like the dynamic input popping in the middle of my screen. Why is that all turned off? There we go. When I'm presenting, right? So if I type blip mode and I hit enter, it's an unknown command. It's an old AutoCAD command that has been undefined. But if I type dot blip mode, it actually recognizes the command and I can turn it on, right? So you may be wondering what a blip mode is, but if I pick on the screen, you can see it leaves behind little blips.
And then you have to regenerate to get rid of them.
Oh, you don't have to regenerate. You just pan or zoom.
Oh, just pan.
But they're just annoying.
Oh, back when I was using them, you had to regenerate.
Yeah,
you couldn't.
Back in the day, yeah.
AutoCAD 14, not 2014.
RE, and then when they came out to Windows from DOS, you could actually hit F5. You don't type in RE to regenerate. You type F5.
Right. But so if a command is undefined or been redefined to be something else, for example, I knew one company, the company actually did they redefined the line command to draw polylines.
Huh.
Right. Because they despised lines. So if you do redefine line, or you can, you can undefine line and then create an alias for line to be a polyline, right? You can always type. So if I undefine line, so if I type line now, it says line type manager because it auto completed, right? But just line all by itself is an unknown command. But if I type dot line, it goes back to the core way it's defined in the program and I can still run it. So I don't care if my users customize the snot out of their commands. Do it, become more efficient. Don't stay inefficient because I might come. I worked with one company I worked at. The CAD manager did not allow any customization at all because he might come on the computer sometime. And I wholeheartedly 100% disagree with that.
I disagree with that. I just always hate it when in the Revit world, there's no way to type in those commands. You better know where the damn buttons are.
Right.
Which again, most people don't.
Yeah. So I'm all about letting users customize stuff. So in fact, I'm going to go figure out how to make sure that my users can customize their quick properties now that I realize that they can't.
It's actually funny you say that too, because for me, I used to redefine a lot of the AutoCAD commands with Lisp routines. Like when somebody typed in dimension, it would automatically switch it to a Lisp routine that would run you, because this was old school days, switch you to the dimension layer so you could put the dimension in. So all the dimension commands had been redefined, angle, radius, all of those been redefined to a Lisp routine that would actually do it. So yes, I would still do that to a point, but it was still the same damn command. It wasn't like I was undefining line and making line be circle. What?
Right.
All right, so we did have a question come up from Perla. How do I stop the unable to load customization file every time I open CAD? Asking for a friend because you already showed me this.
Yeah, so the question Perla is asking is kind of specific to GEI. So back in the 2022 version, I had 2 customization files being loaded at the same time. So if I go into CUI, under partial customization files, there was the, I don't remember which one it was. I think it was was it the vehicle tracking showing up here? And then it was also showing up here underneath the enterprise. Right. And so I just went into our custom CUI file. Each person would have to do it and remove it from here. So that was what that was. So again, it's kind of more specific to GEI. It wasn't necessarily a generic thing because other people, but if you run into it, check out your CUI file. If you're not sure, if you're not familiar with the difference between this enterprise CUI file is, basically what this one is, it's read only. So you can't get in and edit it. So here at GEI, all of our customization files are stored underneath here. So there's the GEI CUI file and the Express tools and the planning and analysis and all of the other things that we load in are stored underneath the enterprise, because our users should not be editing those, right? These are the way GEI has them set up, and this is the way they should stay. Now, remember, I said I'm a big fan of allowing users to customize things, which is why we have the custom CUI file up here. So users can come in and create their own custom workspaces. They can load additional customization files. They can go in and change their double click actions, right? So you can come in here and add a double click action so that, hey, when I double click on a surface, instead of bringing up the AutoCAD properties, I want it to bring up the Civil 3D surface properties, right? All sorts of fun things. One you probably shouldn't do is add a double click action for double clicking on text. It closes the program without saving. Don't do that. That would be mean to somebody else. You wouldn't do it to yourself, obviously, but
I like it.
Right.
One of these days, just need to do a whole hour dedicated to screwing with coworkers.
I could totally do that.
No, yeah. Actually, you could set it so it erase everything and then do a double save, so the backup file's corrupted as well, and then exit without saving. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing you do on your last day.
Yeah.
Whether you want it to be your last day or not, it's going to be your last day.
That's right. That's right.
When Brian Haley and I worked for the same reseller, we had a person who kept telling us that AutoCAD would freak out. We watched them on a screen share in AutoCAD. They would hit save and the file would disappear from Windows. Just go away. We found out the person was quadruple clicking save. So they were telling Windows to save. And Windows was like, what the hell? And the file would just disappear. We didn't realize this until literally we were in the neighborhood. It was like an hour drive from our office. We were in the neighborhood, drove up and saw the person, literally heard them go, oh, you can't hear that, on their mouse. And we're like, wait, why are you clicking that 5 times?
So I have a question. I heard this come up somewhere, and I'm curious of what y'all's thoughts on this are. This is more of a CAD manager question. So I am the CAD manager here at GEI, and one of my jobs is to make my users as efficient as they can be. And I heard somebody say that the problem with overly customizing CAD to make it super efficient is that your users don't learn CAD. They just learn how to do it the GEI way. So if they go someplace else, then they're like, oh, I don't know how to do it because I always just had the tool palette that had all the stuff already on it. I'm curious what y'all thoughts on that are.
I get people like that all the time that come from other companies that want to know, well, wait, how do you do this? And it's to the point where, and that's why I'll defer with Brian Mackey here. Keeping the current and out of the box commands is a must. But customizing additional commands to help you do your work faster and more smoother, aka the Haley way, is also a must. Efficiency is defined by how quickly you know the commands and how quickly you can generate them.
Okay.
I had an individual that ran on buttons all the time. They didn't do type in commands. I'm an old school old man typer. So I type in my commands. This person had 90% of their real estate nothing but buttons. I also have individuals that like the pull downs. They still have the pull downs. They don't use the ribbons. So efficiency is all about, and and this is just me rambling on, but efficiency is all about how you know how to use the program in itself. But if you customize it to a point where D for dimension will not only change the layer, put it on a dimension style, make the dimension style annotative, and place it where you want it just by thinking, then the person kind of loses their ability to think for themselves. Now, and now, do I want it to do a certain amount of customization? Absolutely. But if it's automatically annotative and people don't know how to manipulate annotation, then there becomes a problem, because then they become, and please don't hate me for saying this, they become a CAD monkey.
Right.
Where we don't, the days of CAD, those types of individuals are kind of gone. Everybody that sits in CAD, in front of CAD, especially civil, is a designer, pseudo AK engineer. And so, yes, to answer the question, I think that from my perspective, I have seen people come from other companies not knowing how to do certain basics because the company had written stuff so specific.
Right.
Yeah,
So
there's a fine line. To answer Brian Haley's question on that too, because you do that to make people efficient and your documents standard across the region. But then, yes, when they go somewhere, people come in, and Charlie and other people are saying the same things here. It's a fine line. Like I customize things for a lot of clients, and I've had people. For me, it's the best word of mouth marketing ever as a consultant, because people leave that firm going, "Oh my God, you guys don't know shit. You got to get this guy over here." For me, it's great marketing.
Yep.
But there is that fine line, because people go somewhere and like, I didn't realize how little I knew about this piece of software because you had it so streamlined and customized. I'm like, no, I know it can do this. I just don't know how to get it to do that.
Yep.
Right? So there's that fine line of drawing those things in there. I mean, in the all AutoCAD world, I remember when I left the company, they consulted with me for 2 years after I left to come back and keep updating it when new releases came out and adding things for them. And I actually was a full-time employee, not a consultant at that point in time. So it was like, they called it Brian CAD. Like, we made it so efficient, but we don't know how to update that. And there's also that problem you have too, is if Haley uses GEI, how customized is it? And is the next person going to be able to pick up on that?
Yep. Yeah, that's a good point too.
And that's actually where I was headed with that, because yes, you become an invaluable resource to the point where it's great for you. But if you go to retire, the poor company's kind of oops.
Yeah, and along those lines, I also heard that if you can't be replaced, you can't be promoted.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. That negative. That works too. Yeah.
So I want to address some of the comments in the chat there. So Tom had said that you heard of techs that are that way. They ask where the draw property line tool is. So, we've got that exact same thing here. So if I come up here to GEI design line, utility line work, I can come in here and draw a communication cable TV line, and it just draws it for you. So you don't even have to. I think this is and this is the kind of thing I was talking about. It's customized so you can do that, but then, well, what's the process for doing that if you don't have the tools?
Yeah.
Is it keeping the users at a disadvantage when they go to other companies? Charlie mentions that he doesn't have a good understanding of how the layout tabs work because we've automated that whole thing, right? If you need a new layout tab, you just go to the GEI tools, plan set, standard layouts, move it over onto the screen that everybody else can see.
What I also
the one you want, and it's done.
What I also find, Brian, is sometimes there are individuals that, like for a case, you're the CAD manager on this particular portion. You've got the CATV, but somebody needs a new overhead telephone electrical that's 25,000 kV.
Mhm.
And that line type's not in your library and you're off on vacation. Oh no, what do I do?
Right.
And those are the situations that I kind of think of in the back of my head as a bottleneck type of scenario. Because that's exactly how we have, well, not exactly, but very similar to what we have with ours and our standards with our company, and the fact that they start picking and pulling, but when the automation becomes too elaborate, we become a bottleneck as well.
Right. Yeah. And Ish mentioned that just distinguish which ones are stock CAD and which ones aren't. And I think here at GEI, we have that pretty much wrapped up because all of our custom stuff is in these GEI tabs. Mm-hmm. Everything else is stock. So that's a great point, Ish. Thanks for pointing that out. I love that. I think we do that here at GEI, but if we weren't doing that, I would definitely want to do that. And it also makes upgrading to the next year easy because I don't have to go in and change the insert tab to include the GEI stuff because I've got all my GEI stuff just right here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it is a fine line, and there's always a fine line on that too, especially with younger people coming up. Like, how many of you guys have ever actually been there when somebody's like, "Oh, I need AutoCAD installed"? You okay? That's going to be about an hour. Like, there's not just an app store for me to go browse and search and install real quick, like on my phone. Right? I've had a lot of when I work with a lot of clients, like, "Oh, I need this, and they don't understand." So the younger generation, everything is so easy like that for them. You start running into this thing of the Macs are that way too. Mac takes control of a lot of things on your computer. Obviously, all of our phones, tablets, etc. It's just you don't know what's going on in the background on anything you're using on those mobile type devices. So it's this fine line of, do we do the same thing in this software world, or are we trying to pull back on something like that? I don't know if I have the answer, but yeah, it's weird.
Yeah. So we have one question. Y'all are slacking today. I don't. What are you tired from the long weekend or something?
They're just all enjoying your beautiful tips on how to get the annoying shit off your screen.
Yeah. So Danny asks, how do you have it load company Lisp in 2023? I have it working in 2021, but not 2023. You want to take this one, Brian?
You're talking to me?
Yeah.
Well, he's surely not talking to me.
I'm not talking to Maggie, that's for sure.
Let me peruse the question. If you have load, I'm a little confused in the fact that I would be doing it. I've done it the same way I've done it in 2021 as I've done it in 2023. Okay.
So let's ask it this way, Brian. If you have a company specific Lisp routine, and you want it to load on everybody's machine, how would you go about doing that?
Well, okay.
Share your screen?
I can definitely attempt to do that. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Hopefully I don't leave by accident. There it is. There's share my screen. Okay. So let's see did it say I can't? I mean, you cannot share your screen while you are the other participating is sharing. Oh,
stop sharing.
I've also wanted to know on Teams, why did they put the answer and the hang up button right next to each other?
Right?
Or share my screen is next to hang up, and I go to share my screen and I hang up. I mean, I know I'm old and blind in one eye, but come on, those buttons should not be next to each other.
Okay, so ignore what you're seeing on my screen. What I will do is I will start a brand new guy. So the way here at Tetra Tech we do our items is I create, as a CAD manager, I will create an argument file and I will create an icon. And I'm in charge of the argument file. So the options within the options, we have profiles. And in our profiles, I generate an argument file. And in this argument file, it takes care of all of my support file search paths, all of my tool template settings, all of my tool palette locations, and everything such as that. That argument file is then stored in the cloud. And we have cannibalized the A drive. Anybody know what the A drive is? Anybody remember what the A drive used to be?
3.5 floppy
disk.
3 floppy disk. Well, they no longer have them, nor do they have CDs anymore on these new computers. So what we've done here at Tetra Tech is we have generated a SharePoint site that we keep all of our standards on. And this is a one-way path. So we have them synchronize the items. This is a very long-winded, my apologies, but from a CAD manager standpoint, this is the fastest I've found to be able to do it across multiple offices, so everybody's on the same page. But we have them synchronize the folder to their hard drive. When it synchronizes to the hard drive, we keep via OneDrive. They keep it on their hard drive, so that way, whether it's desktop or laptop, you've always got your standards with you. And yes, I'm an old batch file type of guy. In here, we come in and I'm going to just show you what it is really quick. It uses the old substitute command, creates an A drive, substitutes and puts a profile based on the user profile. So, what Brian Mackey was talking about, a person coming in and getting on another person's computer, generally you log in, so they would have to rerun the script, but it would all be there. and then it creates our standardized folders that are necessary. At that point in time, it makes an A drive, and then the person launches AutoCAD for the very first time, goes into options, and loads in the argument file. Once they load in the argument file from the import, it'll grab it from the location, our A drive, and at that point, it's set up. The next step is we need to make sure that when they launch using this profile. So additionally, in that location, I have created a icon that they copy to their desktop, and it brings it along and it generates and it looks to that argument file whenever it does its startup. So right there, you can see it's using the TTC3D standard, and away it goes. Within here, it looks, because in the hierarchy of the support file management, it looks to this routines folder the very first time. And in this routines folder, I'll take you here really quick, is an AutoCAD doc.lsp. And in here, we have all of our standard setup, and it starts loading all of our typical commands for our menu pull downs that you'll see up above. Let me see, can I move? I can move that. So we have our Tetra Tech area here that, looks like a GI or whatever, Brian, your place is called. We have our layers, our line types and such. We have our, title blocks and borders, and we capitalize on using a design center to implement all of our standard layers and such. So when you click on it, it just brings up the design standard, and you can come in here and grab the dim styles or whatever you need for what you got. And that'll load the primary lists, and that's how I bring everything forward. So for a new user, it's a 30-second item where they import the profile and bring in the icon, and these will all show up. So there's a lot of magic that happens behind, but I don't know, man, that might have probably went too far into it. My apologies.
That's okay.
But
I was thinking about just talking about the ACAD.lisp or the ACAD doc.lisp.
Yeah, the ACAD doc.lisp, it'll come in. So we have it set up our, LT scale, PSLT scale, all of these guys. And then at the end, because
so why don't you talk about what the ACAD doc.lisp is?
Oh, my apologies. Okay, so the ACAD doc.lisp is basically the first Lisp that AutoCAD looks for your standardization or for loading of your files. Now, Brian, I need you to correct me on this, because I'm not doing it from a teacher standpoint. Mm-hmm. I'm doing it from an individual that has just been in the game for
right. So basically all the ACAD doc Lisp, it's a Lisp routine that is loaded into every single drawing that is launched. So as soon as you open up a drawing, it runs this Lisp routine.
Yep. And there is one with every install of AutoCAD. And we redirect to this location to launch ours. Now, this looks very complicated, but it's not. It does simple things like, the sheet set manager status, it sets it to 0. The auto open sets it off. Here's another one, field eval, we set it to 29. And then you can go out and tell it to look for other AutoCAD Lisps.
Yep.
And this is the key portion, because not only does this is the main Lisp that it loads, then it loads our company Lisp. And then if it has it loaded, we have what they call a local toolbox. This is what we allow each person to modify themselves. So they can put this on their own machine, modify it, and that way they can load up their own Lisps, thus facilitating them changing whatever commands they want to.
Right.
I discourage the change of the PGP file, because if you go to another version of AutoCAD, you've got to update your PGP or pull the PGP over. This is a similar item where you just bring in your local toolbox and take it over to a new known location, and it will just start pulling from it. And it comes through and it loads the items automatically.
Awesome. All right. So hopefully that helped you, Danny.
Yeah.
That was a lot.
Yeah,
But
sorry.
I think it got to what you needed as well as putting it in the ACAD doc.list. So if you have a company list routine, just add it into the ACAD. And if you have multiple ACAD doc.list routines on your system, CAD will do it to the first one it finds in that search file path. So in your options, if you go to your file support, the first one it finds, that's the one it will run. So I want to talk about Charlie's question there. So Charlie has a question. What is your preferred method for adding segments to the end of an alignment? I typically just add floating curve line segments one at a time. Is there a better way? All right, so let me go ahead and draw an alignment in here. So go home, alignment creation tools.
And you're not sharing.
I'm not sharing. I should probably do that. Thank you.
And I'm going to tag onto that question. Will this work for pipe alignments as well? Pressure pipe alignments as well?
It depends.
Okay.
If you're using the pipe runs, you just edit the pressure pipes and the alignment will change.
Okay.
All right, so let's see. And then I bring over my tool. All right. I'm going to do tangent with curves. I'm just going to kind of do it over here to the side, right? So I'll just throw some quick alignment in here. And Charlie, what you're asking is you're saying, hey, I actually need to add some more onto the end of it. And the way you're doing it is you're coming in here and you're saying, hey, I want to do a fixed line. Then you'll snap to the endpoint here and you'll go to there. And then I need to add another fixed line, right? Yeah, you don't have to do that. You can actually just use these commands again. So I can come in here and choose tangent with curves, snap to that endpoint, and you can see it's actually filleting a curve between the new line segment and the previous one. And so you can continue to draw alignment using that same command as long as the alignment segments are continuing to go the same direction. All right, so for example, if I wanted to draw more alignment off the beginning of it, right? If I go tangent with curves and I snap to that endpoint and I pick and I pick and I pick, it didn't do any, you notice there's no stationing because this alignment segment is going up to the right. This alignment segment is going up to the left. They're going in opposite directions, so it can't calculate the stationing. So if I undo that, and then I do it again, and I start over here, and then I end there, then the stationing is calculated. Now, it didn't put a curve there, but you would just have to add that one in manually when you're done.
Is that a negative? Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Oh, sorry. I just had a bit of a heart attack.
Well, yeah, because I added stuff to the left of the zero.
I know.
This wasn't a question about stationing on alignments. Jeez.
A great example.
And I invited you to join me? What was I thinking?
So 2 things came up with that when you were doing it. One came up, drag the alignment into wherever you need, and then add PLS and fill it as needed.
PIs.
PIs. There you go.
Yep. So I could say, oh, I want to put 3 I still have my blip mode on.
I so know what I'm getting Brian for his birthday.
All right. So basically you can say, oh, I want this to end there. And then you can just come in and insert PIs. So I use the insert PI and put down, boom, 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 and then come in and fill it some curves in there. So yeah, that works as well. If I needed curves between each one, I would do it the other way. I think it's a lot more efficient.
Can I add a word of warning? Only because if you have a profile associated to this alignment, be very careful on how the, what do you want to call that? The pinning of that alignment is set up, the vertical alignment is set up, because if you have it set so that way it stays with the start of your alignment, I believe most of it's okay. But if you start adding and removing and you have the profile set such it deletes entities as you move your alignment along, it will look at those PI points and it can delete spots in between them. So just something to be careful of.
Yep.
And someone else made a comment about your negative feet value there, saying, does it start at 0, 0 if you add the beginning of the alignment?
Yeah, so it doesn't. So you can see it's negative here. So if I add to the beginning of the alignment, it does keep this as 0, 0, because that's where 0, 0 was. So it's not going to change the stationing of the rest of the alignment. Because remember, you could have sample lines in here, and the sample lines are based off of the station value of the alignment, not the location in the drawing. So if I were to add geometry to the beginning and it changed the stationing of the alignment, those sample lines would move. So it's not going to do that for you. You would have to go into the alignment properties, all right, on the station control tab and say, hey, I want my reference point now to be this beginning point, and I want that to be station 0. And I don't know if you saw that little nastygram that popped up here. All right. Basically, it's saying, hey, if you're changing the stationing of your alignment, things that are based off of the station value will move. Are you sure you want to do that? So in other words, try to get your alignment as close as possible as you can prior to doing those other things. But now if I hit OK, you can see, it's now 0, 0 there.
And you could also set it such that you don't start your station at 0. You can start it at like a 1 + 0, 0 or
10 + 0, 0 or whatever.
0,
Yep.
0.
Yeah, absolutely.
That'll help a little bit along that line.
Then as you were showing that, there were some follow-up questions. One of the things was talking about up in the chat about ARG files. They load only once in the registry. So there were some comments on that in there. And then Tom Richardson said, how do you address things stored in user roaming, such as working folders and profile.aws? So when you're talking about the customization stuff.
Right. So the way we handle our profiles here is, you notice we have a version on ours. So the first time people launch the CAD using this profile, it gets loaded in, and now that is their profile. If I make a change on my system, it'll get copied to their system, but it's now just an ARG file that's on their system, and CAD doesn't care.
Yeah.
So if I need to update the profile, which I try not to do, I will give it a version 1.1 and have that be the active profile for whatever. And then when they launch it, it's going to say, oh, I need to use that new ARG file, and it'll load that in. But the problem is it then changes all of their settings, like, you know, the selection stuff and the user preferences on the right click customization. It resets all that. So that's why I try to minimize doing that, which is why I've gotten away from using tool palette groups, because I don't know how to update tool palette groups without updating the profile.
Cool.
So,
and there's one last question, and it was you can say yes or no technically, so it can be a 10-second question. It was, did you get a chance to look at the Texas DOT alignment creation in Civil 3D when you only have stations, bearings, and degree of curve?
I did not get a chance to look at that, Tom. Sorry.
I figured that's what your answer was going to be, so I figured we could stick that in, even though we're past the bottom of the hour.
Yep. So yeah, well, I know we've gone a little bit over time. Thanks everybody for all the wonderful questions there at the end, which should have been asked at the very beginning. It would have made our life a lot easier.
Can I ask a question that we can start off with next time? Because it's something that I have with water people all of the time, and the fact that as they're going down station, they want to look backwards up. So they're kind of like walking backwards down station, and they want all their sections.
Yeah. So basically what you're saying is when you're standing here at station 11, looking at station 12, you want positive values on the left instead of positive offsets on the right.
Yeah.
That's what you want? Yeah, we can talk about that.
Yes, thank you.
Just remind me, because I will forget.
I shall remind you.
Beautiful.
That's a great startup question. So.
Oh yeah.
There you go.
Cool.
Yeah, so you go ahead and type that one in, Brian, and put it on a sticky next to your monitor so you remember it for next month.
Along with blip mode.
I think you need to
so yeah, thank you everybody for joining us. Tell your friends, tell everybody. I will be posting this up on my YouTube channel shortly, probably in the next few days or so. Appreciate everybody coming. Have a great week, and as always, stay awesome.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.